After week 8 of the NFL season, the AFC North lost their undefeated streak as 2 of the 4 teams took L's in the AFC North in week 8, but the standings still remain the same. The situations, however, they change every single week, and so we're going to start at the top of the division with the Baltimore Ravens, now 6-2 overall, 2-1 in the divisions. They did not make any deals at the trade deadline. They stayed pretty much where they were, and with where they're standing, it's kind of hard to argue against that. They won the Battle of the Birds 31-24 against the Arizona Cardinals. That could be argued that that game was a bit of a step back from their beatdown against the Lions, where you have the lowly Arizona Cardinals, and that game was, a bit too close for probably a bit too long for most Ravens fans' liking. It was definitely a little worrying seeing the game stuck at 14-7 late in the third, especially with the Cardinals having a chance to make something happen on a drive that could have potentially tied it, but Geno Stone coming in with another interception to basically let everyone know that this won't really be a game that the Ravens are at a risk of losing. The offense definitely got into gear late in this one. Gus Edwards totaling 3 touchdowns, his first 3-touchdown game of his career. Congrats to him for that. The rushing game definitely encouraging there. Beating the Cardinals, not exactly a difficult ask, but, they still have to go out there and get the job done. We'll see if they're able to replicate their success against bird teams as they play the Seattle Seahawks this week. They pull out a win over the Browns that we'll get to later in the video, but for the Ravens, they stay where they are as far as deadline acquisitions. They get a comfortable, but maybe not as convincing as you would like win against the Cardinals. But again, the goal of every Sunday is to get a win. The Ravens got that done against the team that they definitely should have beat. Not much to comment there on that besides the Ravens. They have definitely pulled away in terms of the AFC North, definitely based on the results of the other two teams that were closer to them. One of them being the second place Pittsburgh Steelers, who are now 4-3 overall, still 2-0 in the division. They were also radio silent at the deadline, despite there being some pretty strong rumors that they would acquire Bears cornerback Jalen Johnson, but they could not pull off a victory against the Jaguars, losing at home 20-10, losing in a way that they haven't really done so this year, and that is where the game was close for most of the contest. Like I said last week, where the Pittsburgh Steelers have pulled off wins by just kind of hanging around games and then being able to take them at the last second, where their previous 2 losses were all kind of blowouts from the beginning. This one was close pretty much the whole way through. Usually Pittsburgh, would they find a way to force a turnover, let the other team make a bad mistake or miss a field goal or something, or maybe it's just the Pittsburgh offense coming to life. This one, not really much of the sort here. Jacksonville just might be too well of a team to be having those kind of things happen to them. Certainly not helping matters was losing Kenny Pickett, having to suffer through Mitch Trubisky coming into that game. Also, just some horrendous calls going against the Steelers. Deontay Johnson having some harsh words for the officials in postgame, saying that the refs wanted the Jags to win. The officials, they made some bad calls. They earned those words for sure, but the Pittsburgh Steelers also didn't have their best game, and there have been game-breaking calls in a ton of games in this one. It just so happens that the Pittsburgh Steelers happen to be victims of a couple of them. Officiating in general just seems to be at an all-time low. It seems like every week now there are multiple games that are being impacted by just terrible officiating calls, but we'll see how they rebound tomorrow playing against the Tennessee Titans. Some positive news: Kenny Pickett was a full participant in practice, so it looks like he's probably going to be good to go for this one. Last week I definitely would have said the Steelers should feel pretty good about their chances heading in. However, Will Levis might be a Tennessee Titans spark plug, maybe just what the Titans needed to get their season perhaps turned around. I guess we'll find out more tomorrow night. Then you can go to the third place Browns. They also fall to 4-3 overall, 1-2 in the division. Now, they did make a deadline move, but it was not to acquire a player, but to give one away. They trade Donovan Peoples-Jones to the Lions for a 2025 6th-round pick. I did talk about that as of recording. That is my most recent video on the channel. They also lost last week to Seattle, 24-20. I did talk about that game on Sunday as well. The Browns were essentially running on pixie dust with their wins against the 49ers and the Colts, and the Magic just kind of ran out of this one. When you consistently need game-winning drives with PJ Walker at the helm, when you compete in these close games over and over and over, one of them is bound to end that the way that it did. No Deshaun Watson again, at least this time it was announced earlier on in the week instead of last minute, or because he gets hurt and was playing awful in the first quarter of the Colts game. There was another bad quarter from the defense where they gave up 17 points on 3 straight scoring drives in the first quarter. Although the defense, they sunk in, they settled in for the majority of the rest of that game. They did give up the Seahawks' final drive without a whole lot of resistance. Maybe some of that was the momentum that the Seahawks got from that interception late in that game before the 2-minute warning. The quarterback room after the game, that the drama still at a pretty high. Stefanski wouldn't necessarily commit to PJ Walker starting if Deshaun Watson couldn't go again this week. So if it's not Deshaun Watson, we might see Dorian Thompson-Robinson get another go, which, I would warm up to that idea essentially because, DTR in his first start, he only knew he was starting like a couple hours before, and it was up against that very daunting Ravens defense. Maybe against the Cardinals it would work out a little better, but we have seen the Browns win games with PJ Walker. We haven't seen that with DTR. Now, Deshaun Watson, he did practice today. There are some videos of him throwing the ball. It did look to have some zip and velocity to it, but we've heard positive things about Deshaun Watson before going to a game, and then it turns out, he's actually not going to be able to play. So that's something we'll have to see how that progresses just throughout the week. Now, as I mentioned, the Browns play the Cardinals this week. They have a decision of their own to make a quarterback between Kyler Murray, who might not be quite ready to come back, or rookie quarterback Clayton Tune. So whoever the Cardinals choose, that definitely seems would kind of change how things might be perceived, as if Kyler Murray's coming back and he has one of his crazy good games. Maybe the Cardinals might have a bit more of a chance than some are giving them at this moment. But then you get to the Bengals, who are still technically at the basement of the division, but it sure doesn't feel like it. They improved to 4-3 overall, still 0-2 in the division. No deadline deals for Cincinnati either, so mostly dead air across the AFC North in terms of trades at the trade deadline. But what the Bengals did get was a win over the 49ers in San Francisco, who are now in a complete free fall. They won 31-17. Definitely the most complete win for Cincinnati when you have, the last... you had the two defensive efforts with a less than stellar offense. Then you had the Cardinals game where the offense definitely showed up, but the defense gave up a bit more than you'd like to see them give up. This one seemed to have everything working for the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow seems to be going at 100%. Any of the early season woes about his calf injury lingering, that didn't seem to be present there, and I don't think it will be moving forward. He was moving around, using his legs as a weapon. Definitely good to see him going back to doing that. That definitely helps the flow of this Cincinnati Bengals offense when Joe Burrow does have that ability to move around and get out of the pocket and either use his legs to get yards or find guys scrambling. Definitely helps the play calling there. Brock Purdy was in concussion protocol heading up to this game, but he did play in the game. Not everything went perfectly on defense for Cincinnati, but more than enough was good defensively for the Bengals in that game to get the job done, including forcing 2 interceptions from Brock Purdy. And I felt like the Bengals did do a pretty good job of making sure Christian McCaffrey stayed relatively in check. He did get his touchdown, but I feel like McCaffrey didn't become a game breaker, which I do feel like is the goal of containing Christian McCaffrey, is don't let him completely take over the game. And the Bengals defense did their job to make sure that did not happen. So right now, the AFC North has a clear leader in the Baltimore Ravens, and the other 3 teams trying to play catch up at the moment. Ravens with that 6-2 record. Steelers and Browns trying to string together some consistency. It feels like with week to week, you're not quite sure what you're getting with the Steelers and Browns. And the Bengals, they're starting to recover pretty well from a bad start. It seems like this might just be the MO for the Bengals, where they get into an early season hole. But as the season goes along, things get a little bit better and better week by week. And right now, they seem to be on the upswing to try to make a run at this thing. But that's going to do it for this video. Thank you for watching. If you didn't make it this far into it, let me know what you thought about the AFC North teams down in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Once again, thank you for watching. I'll see you at the next one.